And this National Labor Relations Board doesn't like that. So they're trying to gut the economic advantage that brings to Virginia. There's a reason we have some of the lowest unemployment in the country. And that this is an attack on that.
Everybody save your questions to the end, please. Let's let Mr. Cuccinelli finish what he said, and there will be a time for questions.
And the most egregious of them all is the FCC's attempt to regulate the internet, called net neutrality. And the one thing you know, about something called net neutrality is it isn't neutral. They is anybody in Washington, that's quite bipartisan, name this stuff happy names that typically are intended to suggest it does something other than what it actually does. Last year, 2010, not 1990, not 2000, 1 year ago, the DC Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in a case that the FCC does not have the authority to regulate the internet. Congress did not give them that authority. Congress could give them that authority, but has not done that. Has not done that. The FCC went, back to work and decided, well, yes, we do, by a vote of 3-2. That was December 21, 2010. It's now 9 months later, almost 9 months later, and they haven't yet issued the regulation. I suspect it's because they know they will lose in court, because once they issue it, they're subject to suit. So, in addition to not respecting the Constitution or federal laws, this administration also doesn't respect direct court rulings on point that are 1 year old. It is an extraordinary demonstration of a lack of respect for the rule of law. Some other examples we're seeing here today. And if they don't respect rulings of the federal courts, how do you expect them to respect the rights of states within our constitutional structure, or ultimately of individual citizens? It is an extraordinary showing of the disrespect for the rule of law, which is one of the ways to describe fundamental principles that underlie what makes America unique in the world, and certainly at the time of its founding made it unique. When we don't have constitutionally principled people in Washington to stop this sort of behavior, state attorneys general become the last line of defense against an overreaching federal government. I'm working with attorneys general across the country, Republicans and Democrats, in all parts of the country, to keep the federal government within the Constitution and the law. And when I ran for office 2 years ago, I told people that I would do this. I said that if the federal government crossed certain lines, that I would push back. Now, I didn't really expect so many opportunities to keep my promise, but as long as they keep sending them our way, we're going to continue to keep that promise. It's certainly important to understand why constitutionally limited government is the cornerstone of freedom. That's individual freedom. That's what it's ultimately intended to protect. If that goes, so does our freedom, so does our liberty. If more people knew that simple concept, politicians couldn't get away with things like they do in Washington. And I think that one of the things you see now as part of the reaction, take the Tea Party, for example, sort of a classic example. If the Republican Party had been respectful of these principles when it had control for 6 years in the beginning of the last decade, then I don't think you'd have seen the Tea Party rise. The natural reaction to the Democratic-controlled overreach would have been to just gin up Republican grassroots. But an awful lot of people in this country recognize that both parties play this game. Some more than others, and different people at different times. But while there are three ways that government increases its power at the direct expense of our liberty: more taxes, more spending, and more regulation. And regulation can mean a bill that tells you what to do, or it can mean an agency that tells you what to do or not to do. Well, the Republicans like to talk about how anti-tax they were for those 6 years, first 6 years of the Bush presidency, when they had the Senate and the House also. Well, they were juicing up regulations, and they were massively increasing spending, which crowds out private opportunity as well. So on 2 of the 3 counts of what increases government power, their foot was on the gas pedal. It takes away their moral authority when they spend $700 billion on something like a TARP bailout, to then turn around when the next administration comes in and wants to spend $800 billion on a stimulus bill. What's their objection? What's their objection? And I don't think that they can consistently have one. That's why you have sort of a flaming middle ground. I don't know. It used to be that all the intensity was on the right and the left, but the intensity, I think, that in American politics today is primarily, the new intensity is among those who refuse to affiliate with either party. And that is a broad occurrence. I think it exists across the country to differing degrees. I think it's very healthy for our democracy and for our process of deciding what public policy ought to be. With that, I'm going to take a few minutes of questions and before we go.
Really quickly though, I just want to remind everybody, it's again, it's fine to ask questions, it's fine to disagree, but please keep it civil and keep it as professional as possible. And yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
How much is it costing us to continue to sue and to continue to go to court with the federal government? Our budget in Virginia has to expand throughout the entire region. And is it cost effective right now for us to continue to sue the government over things that we really have no chance of winning?
Well, I mean, we won healthcare in the first round, we lost in the second round. It's going to be best out of 3 in our case when we get to the Supreme Court. The cost of Virginia of losing to our budget is over $1.5 billion in the next 10 fiscal years. And the cost of filing so far is around $10,000 marginal cost. And that's overwhelmingly printing costs because the Supreme Court still has rules that seem like they were written in the 1890s. And none of our printers will do that. Yes, sir.
Earlier you mentioned that carbon dioxide isn't harmful because we exhale it.
I didn't say that. I just said we are exhaling it.
Okay. I was wondering if anyone had pointed out to you that the reason we exhale it is because it's bad for us. If we didn't,
pretty good for trees. Gets us some oxygen.
Stop cutting down trees.
Thanks for the, yeah, great. Where's the paper coming from? Nice sign, by the way, tree killer. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sir. Can you tell him to do
I'm
this?
sorry.
Just tell us.
I appreciated what you said about liberty and what you said about disliking regulations. How then can you take the stance you do on a woman's right to choose?
Well, first of all, it's a very good question. And, we prioritize individual liberty in this country. And that question sort of presupposes there's only one person involved in an abortion decision, and you may believe that. I fundamentally disagree with you on that. I think there are 2 people whose rights are at issue there. And that difference, of course, dictates where it sounds like you are on that issue and where I am. And I respect your beliefs in that respect. I respectfully disagree, but that is what drives my conclusions in that area. Yes, sir.